A family reunites. This is Enduring Faith Bible Curriculum, Lesson 9 of Unit 4. And we're looking at the very end, the tail end of the Joseph narrative. I would like you to look at the various places that are leading up to this, but for the purposes of this video, I'd like us to look at chapter 45 in Genesis, starting at verse 1. Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by him. He cried out, "Make everyone go out from me." So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud, so that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed at his presence. So Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, please." And they came near, and he said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine that has been in the land these 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord over all his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your children, and your children's children, and your flocks, your herds, and all that you have. There I will provide for you, for there are yet 5 years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have do not come to poverty. And now your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see, that it is my mouth that speaks to you. You must tell my father of all my honor in Egypt, and of all that you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down here." Then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept. And Benjamin wept upon his neck, and he kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. After that his brothers talked with him. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now, this lesson, as we reunite the family, is going to have a few little spots here from the previous chapters where Joseph tests his brothers, where he gives them a hard time about things, and calls them before him as he places the money back in their sack, as he requires certain things of them. So please go back through and read those texts as you give the information about Joseph as he tests his brothers. Now, it's time for him to reveal himself. It's time to show them that this is Joseph. All the time before, he's been using an interpreter. And of course, Joseph is clean shaven. He is dressed as an Egyptian. He's wearing the headgear of a leader of Egypt. And so he doesn't look Hebrew like they do. And he's been, like I said, been using an interpreter, so they don't even know the fact that he knows Hebrew. And the whole while he's been understanding them. Of course, he knows his own language. But now he calls everyone to leave except his brothers, and he begins to speak to them in Hebrew. He begins to reveal to them that he is Joseph. Now, the significant thing about the sermon that Joseph preaches to his brothers here is that though they sold him into slavery, into the land of Egypt, it was not they who did it, but it was God, in order that all things might be preserved, in order that the will of God would be complete, in order that the desires of our God would be brought to fruition in the mercy and in the love that he showed and showered upon the people. That he would keep his promises. The Lord doesn't always keep us in the pleasures and the passions of what what we would desire for our lives, but oftentimes appoints for us sorrow and crosses in the very act of delivering those whom he has saved by his blood and by his passion. And so as we look at this, we should note that it is the Lord who does this thing. Now there is a hymn that we should look at, and that is, if thou but trust in God to guide thee. Let me find it real quick. In LSB, it is 750. Okay, and it goes like this. If thou but trust in God to guide thee, and hope in him through all thy ways, he'll give thee strength whate'er betide thee, and bear thee through the evil days. Who trusts in God's unchanging love, builds on the rock that naught can move. Now what's interesting is in this particular text he says, these anxious cares avail thee, they never ceasing moans and sighs. What can it help if thou bewail thee over each dark moment as it flies? Our cross and trials do but press the heavier for our bitterness. It is to take whate'er thy Father's pleasure and his discerning love has sent. This is exactly what Joseph is talking about right here, that in his love he is taking care of you and me. He's taking care of Joseph. He's taking care of the children of Jacob. And yet it feels in the moment as if they're being left alone, that they're being forsaken. And in fact, the complete opposite is the case. They're being held in the almighty embrace of their God and being taken care of and being saved from all of these particular pestilences and such as they come upon us. All right. This might be a two-parter for Catechism Connection, and that is the first commandment, you shall have no other gods. We should fear, love, and trust in God above all things. The fact that we must trust in God above all things. We oftentimes talk about trusting things in our lives, but nothing should have a higher amount of trust. Nothing should be trusted above our own God, even in the midst of the mundane or the daily things of our life. Okay? The other one is the fourth commandment, honor your father and your mother, that these things have been given unto us under the authority which he has granted to fathers and mothers. Now, the other part might be then the fourth petition of the Lord's Prayer, give us this day our daily bread. We have a promise of our God that he will always take care of us. Even in the hardest of times, his promise does not fade away. He doesn't say, oh, I'm sorry, there's a famine or there's an earthquake or, your government's kind of having some rough times or there's a war going on right now, so I'm going to retract my promise. No, his promise always endures. His love endures forever. And so he has promised to give you your daily bread, everything that you need in this body and life, and he will never depart from his promises. He always keeps them. That promise, as well as the promise that he saves you of your sins. He delivers you from the devil and from death, and he transfers you into his righteousness. He wraps you in that righteousness in your baptism and gives you life eternal, makes you a kingdom of priests, and makes you kings and queens. Thanks be to God. All right, I hope you enjoy the study, the finished part of the study of Joseph and his brothers. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. God's peace to you all.